And now, the Shazam ISIS Hour, Part 2, ISIS.
"O my queen," said the royal sorcerer to Hatshepsut, "with this amulet, you and your descendants are endowed by the goddess Isis with the powers of the animals and the elements. You will soar as the falcon soars, run with the speed of gazelles, and command the elements of sky and earth." 3,000 years later, a young science teacher dug up this lost treasure and found she was heir to the secrets of Isis. And so, unknown to even her closest friends, Rick Mason and Cindy Lee, she became a dual person. Andrea Thomas, teacher.
Almighty Isis.
And Isis, dedicated foe of evil, defender of the weak, champion of truth and justice.
What do you do if you're not sure, but someone you love you think is doing something wrong? If you're not sure, Jim, you should give them the benefit of your love.
Welcome back, my friends, to an all-new episode of the Shazam ISIS podcast. It's your old mentor, John S. Drew here, and we're continuing our journey down the highways and byways of the land, continuing that discussion of those two iconic television shows of the 70s that we all know and love, Shazam and the Secrets of Isis. And joining me on this journey, as he's done from the very beginning, is the big red cheese himself, Mr. Richard F. Lee. Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Well, pretty good, Dr. Barnes, or is that supposed to be Dr. John?
Isn't Dr. John a folk singer?
Yes, he is, as a matter of fact. You're thinking of John Rebenek. He's blues, southern gospel, more or less a Louisiana Cajun player, and he lives in New York, ironically.
Oh, hey, I was just teaching my kids in our summer school class about irony today. I always
Irony?
Yes. I always like telling little stories about school since we're dealing with ISIS now and we're in school.
Well, you know, maybe you'll be able to teach your students some of my life story. You see, I'm revealing for the first time to the podcast that I was a high-ranking Jesuit priest who worked in the Vatican. And my duties were to look at high-priced gems and smuggle them out of Rome. And now I've defected, and now they're after me. But you know something, John? Things are not how they appear.
Things are not how they appear, and I guess sometimes the spots of a leopard can change, can't they?
Oh, I guess so. But see, there are two types of deception. Deception by what people say, or deception by how things appear.
I never thought about that way, but you're right.
Yes, and sometimes the deception might be our own, or it could be active deception from the other person. So we're going to look at something like along those lines in this episode of The Secrets of Isis, John.
This episode, did you find that this episode was a little deeper than some?
Yes, I found it to be deep, and we're going to explain why. This was a deep episode. This was really a three-dimensional episode, in my view.
Okay. So why don't we get started talking about this episode?
Okay, this is called Spots of the Leopard. This was aired on September 20th, 1975. And according to the notes that were included with the Secrets of Isis DVD, shooting on this episode began on July 28th, 1975. So, John, as you and I are making this episode of the podcast, this was done approximately 41 years ago when the shooting began on this program.
41 years ago, and that was 1975, so I was an seven-year-old kid. I was a 7-year-old kid at the time.
Would you think that when stopping for a moment and reflecting, back then as a 7-year-old child, that you would someday be talking about the secrets of Isis?
I did not think that was going to be the case, nor did I think at the time that I would be 41 years later just even actually being able to watch Isis on a regular basis, or for that matter, as I was looking at the DVD collection, I had forgotten, they put this one picture of Andrea Thomas on the back of the box where she's got the glasses in her mouth. the rim of the glasses. My God, she's stunning there.
Yeah, she is. I wonder who put her up to that. 'Cause this is a children's show, and a hot-looking woman putting the ends of glasses in her mouth. I'm sorry, man. That I knew when I was 8 years old. I knew that my hormones were raging. Okay, I said, "Who cares about being a teenager? I want to get started on that now." But that's another story, John.
Oh, man.
So, John, guest stars in this episode called Spots of the Leopard.
Okay, so for this episode, we've got Lou Frizzell as Chuck Nelson. We've got Deborah Lee Scott, another mainstay of 70s and 80s television, as Jenny Nelson, his daughter. I remember Deborah Lee Scott from numerous episodes of Match Game.
She was, yes, that's right. I was just going to say, she was on Match Game, and she was a staple of 70s television. She was on Mary Hartman, and she also appeared, I believe, on Happy Days. She was in everything, and she unfortunately passed away some time ago. But Deborah Lee Scott will always be remembered as a character actress, predominantly in the 1970s. And as things go nostalgic, there are many new generations of people coming up who will see Deborah Lee Scott in reruns.
Mm-hmm. Deborah Lee Scott, my big remembrance of her, she was in the TV series Angie. With Donna Pescow as the title character and young Robert Hayes. Yep.
And Donna Pescow and Robert Hayes are on Facebook also, and they're very nice people.
Yes. I'm friends with Robert Hayes on Facebook. I didn't know Donna Pescow. I'll have to look her up too, because I loved Angie. I thought that was such a cute show.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, performers like Deborah Lee Scott are no longer among us, but we can always remember them through the work they've left behind.
Right.
Love it conquers, love it binds, love it seeks and love it conquers, love it binds, love it seeks and love it binds.
Now, the other people we have on the episode, Edward Cross. It's a brief role. He plays Sergeant Connors. And this is a weird one. We have Paul Jenkins as Tom Jenkins.
That is a strange casting decision. Why did they hire an actor named Jenkins to play a character named Jenkins? Was that a coincidence, or was that done on purpose? I'll never know.
I got to go back to the script that's on the DVD set and see if that name really is Jenkins there as well. There's that little part of me that always wonders when you see things like that, if they actually just do it because they can't remember their name as their character. It's easier for, there's Lou Frizzell as Chuck Nelson going, "Jenkins, what do you want?" And Paul Jenkins just looks up and goes, "Oh, that's me."
Well, is it along the same absurdity as, say, remember the original Hawaii Five-0?
Sure.
Cam Fong as Chin Ho.
Or the $6 Million Man episode where Larry Zonka, they wouldn't let him be Larry Zonka in the episode, so he was Larry Bronco.
Oh, jeez. Oh, yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. So who are the writer and director for this?
There's a gentleman by the name of James Shermer, and the director is Arnold Laban, who's directed several other episodes of Shazam and Isis.
Yep.
So I don't really know anything about the writer, what else he's done, but from what we're going to see when we review this episode, we're going to see that this writer is pretty competent in putting together a large group of characters and creating dialogue among them and moving a story along rather well.
Yes, he does. And I've got to give you credit, Richard, because when I saw that name, I was like, thank God I'm not saying his name because I couldn't pronounce it.
Well, I can't pronounce a whole lot of things, including my own name, John. So. Well, as we begin this episode, just like I've begun as a tradition in Shazam, when we do reviews of the Shazam episodes, I had to bring along my good luck charm, my Isis Mego action figure from 1975, watching over my shoulder. Now, as a throwaway joke, there's a motion picture that came out back in 1998 called Free Enterprise. It starred William Shatner, and it starred a young Eric McCormick before he went on to Will and Grace. And it was a movie about pop culture. And in the film, you saw all sorts of references to a lot of different movies and different science fiction franchises. There was a throwaway line in that film where the main character is a constant loser who spends every dime of his disposable income on toys and collectibles. It's true. It's a great movie to look up. It's horrible in that way because it stereotypes all of us, and it turns out to be quite true, actually. But there's a throwaway line that goes, "You spent the rent money, $400 of rent money, on an Almighty Isis action figure from 1975. Bad call." And that line stuck in my mind, so I'm looking at this action figure over my shoulder here, feeling a tad bit guilty that there's other things that are far more important in the world than spending such limited disposable income on a 1975 41-year-old action figure, which I treasure more than friendship, I'm afraid.
Jeez. Now she's over your shoulder. She's not sitting on your shoulder, is she?
No, she's not.
Okay, I just want to make sure. We open this episode with Chuck and his daughter Jenny. They're approaching their car in this shopping mall area there with groceries.
That fathers always seem to buy more groceries than mothers.
You've noticed that, haven't you?
Yeah, like Mom only buys just what we need.
And I only buy what we don't need.
Something like that.
Well, when Mother gets back to town, she'll explain that to you.
Hi, Jimmy.
Who's your friend?
Oh, that's Jimmy Nolan. He's a boy in my math class.
I got a feeling he likes you.
Oh, Daddy. Look, Dad. That boy, he's taking Jimmy's bike. You've got to stop him.
And I'll tell you, right from the beginning, the first thing that stood out to me, I'm looking going, they sure parked their car a long way from the store.
He's gone.
You could have stopped him. Why didn't you?
I don't want to get involved. I can't afford to.
You're afraid of the police.
Honey, try and understand. I just got out of prison. I'm waiting for a new job to come through.
You don't have to explain.
You deserve an explanation. But I just can't give it to you right now.
I'll try to understand.
Thank you, Jenny.
Because all we could see is a music store and then coffee and things in the background. So I'm like thinking, why did they not park close to the supermarket, or is there a supermarket actually in that mall?
Hey, that's a good question. Now, this mall, it really is quaint. There's something about it that's quasi-modern, quasi-old. We're judging 41 years later.
Right.
That these types of areas are very common today. But I was thinking as I'm watching this episode, I'm looking at these little shops. I'm looking at the quaint tile on the roofing here. And I'm thinking this is something that could pass for today. I look at all the old cars in the parking lot. But what stuck out in my mind is that when they're running the credits, why didn't they pick a darker colored font? Because they use white letters to tell you who the writer and director are. You can't read them.
Yeah.
You can't read them at all. Today, that would not be a problem, but you can't read them. And especially on a lot of televisions back in 1975, people still had black and white TVs. Color had not taken over the country yet. And so you can't really make out the credits. And for some people like us, we want to read the credits. And we want to know who the people were who put this episode together. But you're seeing them, just as you say, they're walking, holding groceries, and you wonder, why do they park so far away? Well, maybe the other customers who left those empty parking spots just happened to finish their shopping before these two did. Or it's obviously a writer and director's choice to have them park a little distance so they can have some dialogue on the way to the car.
Well, that's true, yeah, because they are actually walking and talking as the scene goes on.
Now, this is a great setup piece for this episode. The pacing in the very beginning is very good. They don't waste time getting to what this story is about.
Right.
This couple, obviously establishing a mom or a father and a daughter, coming out, and they establish immediately that he has some kind of problem in his past. He does not want to get involved trying to catch a criminal because he could be accused of something. He just doesn't want to talk to the police is what I'm inferring from here. But there's something else. It's a minor point. I don't know if it's a big deal, but this is still 1975. They have a throwaway reference to the mom being out of town. And mom is going to be referred to again in the episode. So in the 1970s, I think there was still a taboo on single parenthood, John. I think that if they could not have the married couple on screen because they couldn't afford actors to play both parts, they'd have to have a throwaway line that the mom or the dad is out of town. You find that on Shazam also. This is not the only time we're going to see this.
You know, I didn't think about that. I'm going back just to the episodes we've done so far where we've had the parents available and yeah, you're right.
And the episode that we just did, the first episode with John Davy on Shazam, Debbie, only the mother is there as the parental authority figure. The dad is off screen, but we know the dad is around. He's established in the script.
Right.
Little Boy Lost, with the one that we had reviewed with Michael Gray, the dad is with his boy who can't speak, and the mother is off screen, and he's going to go to the airport to pick up the mother, but she's not on screen. So it's established in these 1970s shows, you had married couples raising children. You didn't have single parents, especially on a Saturday morning kid show.
Wow. Now, I wonder how much of that, though, and this, I wish to goodness that we could get one of those folks, because I've reached out to one of them who were involved with the educational aspect, the educational advisors. If we could find out if that was, something they had discussed themselves, or if this was just something the producers had done because they felt that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, that might have been standards and practices. I remember working on, if maybe our listening audience will remember, Norm Macdonald had his own television show, The Norm Show.
Right.
And I was on the first episode of the second season.
Really?
I was. In fact, I was in the office bullpen, and I was in a party scene. I was an extra, and that was my second job doing that. My first job was working on the practice. My second job was working on The Norm Show. And there was a cool scene that ended up on Bloopers and Practical Jokes with Ed McMahon. It was funny. I happened to be on there. There was a scene where they wanted to talk about a character on the show who was acting out of line, and they wanted to call him a Nazi. And during the shooting of the episode, Standards and Practices came down in front of a live audience and struck that word Nazi from the script and said, we can't use that word. So Standards and Practices was even heavier in the 1970s as we watch ISIS than it is even in a more contemporary setting where they're still very sensitive about situations, family life, who do you have in the family, and certain words that are used in a script that are televised.
Now that is interesting. That is interesting, though. It's also interesting to know that you've been on The Practice and The Norm Show. We need to work on your IMDb if you don't have one.
Well, I do have an IMDb, but the thing is I can't put that ethically on there because if you're an extra, you can't put things where you were an extra on IMDb. You didn't have an acting or a speaking part. You're not a screen actor.
Okay.
So I can't put extra work on there. I would have loved to have been an extra on Shazam and Isis.
You could have been Little Boy Lost.
So the next scene here, we're at the school now, and Rick Mason is dreaming of sailing the ocean.
Yeah.
Now, what's neat is that here's Andrea Thomas. She's playing with a beaker, and they're discussing Andrea being a detective and how she could solve the mystery of the theft of industrial diamonds. Now, again, this episode, I believe we're talking only the third episode. Do you recall if this is, in fact, the third episode actually aired? Because I have one source that puts it even as the second episode. I know we said that the second episode was on September 13th. This was aired September 20th. So is this really the third episode, or what did it air maybe and they made a mistake in the counting and this aired as the second episode, John?
Oh, you've got me on that one there. I mean, I know because I'm going off what, the liner notes say and what I see on Wikipedia, and they have this listed as the third episode.
Yeah, it's not a big deal with me, but I've seen it listed separately. But it is shown, or the audience is shown, that the setup for Andrea and Rick and Cindy Lee, it was supposed to be a semi-detective show. Instead, they cast them as part of a high school. But this appears to be on the side. They were meant to be a part of a detective team, like Scooby-Doo. We mentioned that before, the Mystery Machine. So here they're bringing up the story of Andrea having some detective skills. So they throw away that line that there's a theft of industrial diamonds. Obviously, it's being very obvious that this is what involves and entails in the plot. Now, anybody across town, John, could be talking about the thefts of the industrial diamonds that were on the news. It just happens to be Andrea and Rick who are going to be involved in playing a small secondary part in maybe solving this mystery.
You say maybe, you say possible, you say secondary. I mean, when we get into, a little later into the episode, they're a lot more involved than possible.
Well, we don't want to spoil that.
And Tut's back.
If you were a detective, you could solve all the mysterious burglaries around town.
I haven't heard about those.
I haven't heard about those.
And Tut is back, our favorite crow. Now, he repeats what everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
Now, I had to slate my curiosity. I checked out, do crows actually talk? And yes, they do. They can talk, like mynah birds or something.
Oh, okay.
I'm not an expert on birds, but apparently crows can talk. But can a crow pick up what's being said that fast?
Well, this is a much smarter bird, I would chalk it up to. I mean, he hangs out with Isis.
Hey, you're right about that.
Yeah. So we cut back to the arrival of Tom Jenkins, this insurance guy who's looking for Chuck. And, he asks Jenny where she's about. He tells them that he's investigating the burglaries of the industrial diamonds, and he wants to talk with Chuck because the thefts fit his M.O. And Jenny's really disturbed when she sees that her father lies when he offers his alibi. He says, I was home all night with my daughter. And she's like, afterwards, she's like, no, you weren't.
Exactly. But before we even get to the lie part, this is a school day.
Right.
Presumably, because he tells her, you better go on to school. That happens later on. Why is he mowing the grass on a school day? I don't know.
Well,
but the father is mowing grass on a school day.
Well, the father's mowing grass on a school day. He doesn't have a job yet, because that's one thing he's also pointing out. He's waiting for the phone call to see if he's got a job. I mean, I would mow grass in the morning before, even if it was before school, if my kids were still in. Because, the weather's cooler. It's a better time to mow the lawn, especially with that old lawnmower he's using. It's not even a motorized one.
I don't think that has a Sears warranty on it, I would guess. He's using a push mower.
Right.
But I don't know what they call those anymore. I haven't seen those in years.
Yeah.
But no, I would think if this was a little more realistic, he would be inside the house watching The Price is Right or something.
Now, there's one thing, though, that got me about this whole thing, though, is that Chuck explains to his daughter that he was evasive and lied and everything because Jenkins was the man who was responsible for him going to jail. So now we set up a history with these two. And it's going to be mentioned again, like once or twice more in the episode. The problem is we never get how he was responsible, do we?
No, we don't. And there's some inferences that you can make from this, that this insurance guy had been an investigator looking at diamond thefts in the past. And somehow Chuck here was implicated in the past. He had done it, and we don't know how it turned out other than he was found guilty. He went to prison for a time. At whatever point, he is going to be looking at him. Now, he's an insurance investigator. He's not a police officer. And so, of all the people in the world, why would he go to him? Now, as the script unfolds, we're going to learn why. But it seems strange that the insurance investigator would come out and not the police or a detective to ask him some questions.
Yeah.
We have here what you just mentioned a moment ago, John, that he lies to the insurance investigator, Jenkins. And the daughter comes up, poor kid, and she says, "But Dad, you lied." So we see a father lying in front of his own daughter.
Little white lies?
Pretty big.
Yeah. So then we cut back to the school. And Jenny's finally made it to school, right?
Yes.
Jenny, you're not eating your lunch. That's not like you. Hey, what's the matter? I don't want to talk about it. Not even to me? No. Well, then how about Miss Thomas? I don't want to bother her with my problems. Why not? I tell her stuff about me all the time. Here's your chance.
Now, Andrea just happens to be walking by.
What a convenience.
But, yeah. And, like we say, this episode is well-paced. Everybody is set up to make their next appearance. So, during the lunch, Jenny reveals what happened to her father and what's happening right now. And he had done something bad in the past. And she isn't sure if she can trust him or not.
Well, this is gonna happen sometimes. I mean, with especially when, I wonder about that sometimes when you've got kids who've got parents who've done something illegal in the past, and then the parents try to be more involved in their kids' lives. If you think about it, especially today, this episode is probably more relevant than it was back in the 70s.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. But here, Andrea basically tells Jenny to give that person the benefit of the doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there is a doubt there, and that we're going to see that this doubt in Jenny's mind is only going to fester about her father. So what happens next? Rick and Andrea are talking about this very incident. Now, I can't make this out, John. Are they in the same shopping mall area that Jenny and her father were before?
I think it is. The angle is slightly different. We don't see coffee and things, but we did see the music shop again. And this time we see, I don't know if it's like a deli or something there in the background as well. Because it looks like there's cheeses or something in the window. I think there's prices by the pound. I caught that.
Yeah, which almost makes it want to go back in time just to take advantage of those awesome sales. I did kind of notice that the parking lot appears rather full.
Yes.
But now, it's a distraction, I suppose, but these cars are really old by our standards.
Yeah, they are.
I'm thinking, all these cars, you don't use the seatbelts in them. They probably didn't have airbags, and they didn't have computer chips at the time. So this is a nostalgic episode in that respect, too. You get to see all these old model automobiles.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of automobiles, Andrea's car is there, and it's still yellow.
It's still yellow. That's right. We mentioned in a couple of episodes before that, and when Andrea's car was stolen, it was red. They changed the color to yellow, and I couldn't remember if they had switched it back or not, and I didn't think they did, but you're right. Apparently, it did remain yellow for the term of this season, I suppose.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I guess she did like yellow after all. So, in the meantime, Andrea Thomas believes that the father is innocent. So, what else is going on? Jenny comes home.
Hi, Daddy.
Hey, Jenny, let me help you with those.
Thank you, Daddy.
You feel better.
Much. And to prove it to you, I'm going to make you a terrific dinner.
Yeah, what a nice surprise.
Well, I want to make it up to you for the way I've been behaving.
Well, I'm glad you changed your mind about me. But how would you like to cook that dinner for me up at Lake Horton?
We're going away?
Right now. Your bag's all packed and already in the car. I thought you might enjoy a little vacation in the woods.
Now, he drops his wallet, and it's full of money.
Where did all this money come from?
A friend of mine, he paid me back some money he owed me.
Does that have anything to do with why we're leaving so quickly?
No, sweetheart, I just wanted to get away for a while.
Dad, do you want to get away or run away?
What do you think? Come on, let's go.
The trust that she was trying to have, the benefit of the doubt that she was trying to muster up for her father, evaporates in 1 second, John.
Yeah.
He's acting a little too suspicious. Now, Jenny is really suspicious at this point. Where did you get all that cash? Well, I was able to collect money from someone who owed it to me. Now, the scene changes, and we go back to the school where we see our trio. And they suggest that they go to their home because Jenny didn't show up for school that day. Cindy remembers that they went camping before. So now Andrea has this information in order to change to Isis to find out where this camp is and to see her herself. Now, isn't this a little strange, John? I don't know. You're in the school business. If a student doesn't show up for school, do you go over with a couple of others to the house to find out what's going on?
Not in my school. No, we usually just let the school secretary call. But you know what I found weird here? Because in essence, 2 days have passed. Because they said Jenny wasn't in school today, and we previously had the scene with Jenny and Cindy Lee in school with the two of them having lunch. I got the impression the way it was that this was all one day at first, because they had the scene with the two of them talking, then they cut to, I guess that does make sense. It's just the transition from the scene with Jenny and her father talking about going camping to the scene at the school could have been better handled, that you got the impression that it was actually the next day, where I just got the impression it was later that day.
Yeah, it was the very next day. I did catch that, but I had to watch it a couple of times. It wasn't too clear.
Right, exactly.
Mighty Isis.
Zephyr winds which blow on high, lift me now so I can fly.
So we cut to the camp area there, the cabin, and we see that Jenny is upset still with her father's behavior. This has really been on her mind and such, and he's still being evasive of her questions. So she decides to go for a walk, and I like that. It's a nice little thing when he was like, oh, I was off walking, thinking about things and stuff. She goes, well, when she asked him about where did you really go that night, and she goes, well, I got to go walk off and think things over. It's a nice touch.
And it looks like a real father and daughter interaction.
Yeah. So as she walks off, we get this scene of her balancing along a log of wood that suddenly slips out from under her. So she tumbles down this incline with the log following after her, and it hits her on the leg pretty hard, because there's this loud thud sound. So I was like thinking, my God, she's got her leg broken or something. Yet she doesn't cry out in pain. And, it's also weird because the clearing and the incline, they look like the same locations from The Secret of Bigfoot on the $6 Million Man.
Well, it very well could be the same location. Kenny Johnson mentioned in his audio commentary of the Bigfoot episodes on the $6 Million Man where this location was. And no doubt this probably was it. But I can see power lines in this in the background here. It's not very remote, John.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta do a double look then at that. So okay, that sort of throws my whole theory out the window. So her foot becomes trapped under the log that hits her, and so she calls for help as we come to the end of Act 1.
Isis! Isis, please help me. Of course. Just relax and don't move.
Now, she has incredible strength, too. I mean, I don't know. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Thank you, Isis.
You're welcome, Jenny.
You know my name.
I know much more than that. I know about the problem with your father. Have faith. Believe in him.
I want to, but...
Jenny, sometimes things aren't what they appear to be. You must try to understand him.
I will try, Isis. I really will. Good girl, Jenny.
Now, this is good because Isis manages to put in an appearance, partially at least, in the first act.
Mm-hmm.
And so, already in this first season of Isis, we're seeing more of the superhero. We're not keeping her to the very end like they would for the first season of Shazam. Anyhow, Isis urges Jenny to have faith in her father. Oh, that's okay. That's a nice little mini moral right there, John.
Yep.
But we got to think for a second. What if her father really is guilty? Now that you put faith in your father, it's shattered all over the place. You may never put faith in anyone ever again.
Well, you got to remember Isis and Andrea. Andrea had stated earlier she believed the father was innocent, so she's following through with that.
That's good.
Yeah.
And that's the case.
Yeah.
So back at the school, Cindy Lee reports that Jenny called her and told her everything was fine with her dad, Chuck. So they're invited to a barbecue that weekend.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's it. Case closed, right? Good night, everybody. How's your rating on this? No, it's not over yet. What's really interesting about this one is that the first time Jenkins comes around, right, and he's trying to talk to Chuck, there is something almost sinister about him. But now that, like, it looks like the whole thing has been resolved and we've got the barbecue and we get to the barbecue, the weekend and everything there, we see that Jenkins is there among them. He wants Chuck's help in catching the thieves. I guess he figures, it takes a crook to catch a crook.
Probably true. If that's the case, why aren't the police involved just yet?
Well, nobody seems to be asking that question. Nobody seems to be asking that question. And nobody seems to notice that Jenkins is a lot more agreeable. I mean, he almost comes across as friendly here.
Yeah, he does.
Now, here's my one question, though, for you. Now, Chuck has agreed to help. He takes all the data about all the locations with the diamonds and where they're located and what each place is like, the security is like and such, and he suggests where the next theft will occur. And there's once or twice in this very scene, there's just these weird ending act music cues that are being used that don't really end the scene, though.
So, what do you think is why was the editing choice done with those music cues?
Well, there's a couple of weird editing choices in the episode altogether. I don't think it's a director's choice. I think it's more of an editor's choice in terms of the way things were done there and the cutting and such. That does put me off a little bit on the episode, where I almost gave, and we'll get to the review at the end, my review was almost a little lower based on that, but in the end I was like, yeah, I can't do that because the performances were good, and we'll get into that all at the end there. Yeah. So shortly after, Jenkins calls Chuck and tells him that the police have a tip about the thief, except he's not calling Chuck, he's calling Lou Scheimer.
Chuck, I have good news. The police just got a tip about the thief. Sunday's the day he's gonna hit. The landing company.
That's tomorrow?
That's right, and I've got it on the best authority. And before long, you're really gonna be a free man.
Sounds great.
Okay?
You bet.
I'll see you.
That's Lou's voice, isn't it?
That's Lou's voice. That was not Chuck's voice. He's supposed to be talking to Chuck.
Yeah.
And I think what happened here is they couldn't get the line from Lou Frizzell, the actor.
Right.
So they had to use somebody's voice, and Lou Scheimer said, I'll just fill in. And it's not this poor guy at all. He doesn't pass for this guy. It's not his voice. It's not him. That kind of took me out of the story, John.
Oh, yeah. No, that's as bad as the $6 Million Man episode, Dr. Wells is Missing, in which Steve is talking to a woman about how to say something in Dutch. And they're on him because they show the woman, but for whatever reason they didn't get the whole scene where she was doing the lines, or maybe she couldn't speak the language because it was kind of made up or whatever. So instead, the script reader's voice can be heard as the voiceover talking back to him, and it's a totally different toned voice.
Oh dear!
Oh,
It's almost something from the Files of Police Squad.
Oh, it's pretty bad.
So now what happens next is that Chuck, though, has revealed that he lied to Jenkins because he wants to prove his innocence by catching the crook himself as he steals from the real location. So what happens next? Now we cut to Sergeant Connors with Andrea and Rick as they are staking out the other location.
Yeah, the what?
So what?
As
I don't
they're
get that.
doing what?
Yeah, they realized maybe they were given the wrong information. I didn't quite catch that, John.
No, but no. They're staking it out? Why are the two science teachers staking out? Why is the cop what is it with the police letting these teachers just go about, Mystery Mountain? Sure, come with me, the sheriff says. What is it? Is that part of ISIS's magic?
Yeah. We're looking into a serious jewel theft, and there may be weapons involved. Come along, John. You should help us solve this crime.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna walk down to the 50th precinct in my old neighborhood and walk in there and just go, "Hey guys, I heard there's this going on. Can I come along with you for the ride?"
Well, they do allow ride-alongs,
They do allow ride-alongs, yeah. But they don't get out of the car, though. Oh Lord!
Dear.
So Chuck goes in. We cut to the actual theft, and Chuck sees the person breaking in. We don't see them. It's a nice little touch. Although after a certain point, you kind of... Well, actually, I shouldn't say that because we didn't see who it was. I actually thought it was Chuck at first breaking in because all we see is the neck down. I actually did think it was Chuck breaking into the place, but we see it's actually Chuck when we pull back looking at the whole theft, and he goes and enters just as the safe inside is being blown open. And we see that the thief is, dun dun dun, Jenkins.
Yes, that's right. So this is kind of neat. The editing was well done. The camera work was well done.
On this scene it was, absolutely.
But, of course, Chuck has a little larger girth, and you can probably tell that it's not him at first. Someone with a much smaller build is going in, and we see that Chuck goes in, he catches the real thief, turns out to be him. Now, as you say, what's going on with Andrea and Rick?
Well, so now that, they actually learned about Chuck's plan from Jenny, because Andrea calls Chuck's house and such, and she has Rick have the police shift to the area while she runs off to go make the old change into Isis.
Mighty Isis.
Now this is the second appearance of Isis. Jenkins has Chuck framed for the theft, obviously, as they're wearing similar jackets. Now that was done purposefully to try to throw us off.
Wonder what the police will have to say about this.
You think they're gonna believe you?
I'll take my chances. Oh, the diamonds?
Yeah, they're right here. Now I'm the hero, Chuck. I caught you in there, red-handed with the diamonds.
I wondered why you were so anxious to help me.
Yeah, it was me all the time. You're gonna go back to prison, and in a few years when everything's been forgotten, I'll retire a rich man. Shall we? Slide over, Nelson.
Tom,
Isis!
that's far enough.
I've caught the burglar. It was Chuck Nelson after all.
No way. I just heard you admit that you did it.
Jenkins drives off really fast. He nearly slams into a police car that's on its way. Now Isis shows up and orders the car to rise.
Rise.
Now this is all done with camera tricks. The camera has to close in tight on the car as it's being lifted by an off-screen crane of some kind. And the scene with Chuck and Jenkins in the passenger seat and the driver's seat is a process shot done in the studio.
Lower.
But it's well edited to get the point across that Isis has the powers to make this car elevate. And then she maneuvers it to where the police can make a proper arrest.
And they're led away. Now we have the end of the story, except for one last thing. We get another barbecue where, wrap everything up. Jenny apologizes to her father, realizes she should have had faith in him. And it ends with, and this was something we didn't talk about earlier, that scene in the parking lot with Rick and Andrea. They were actually going to Andrea's apartment to paint it. And...
Tell me, do you think we have time to finish painting my apartment now?
Now?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson, you better make our 2 hamburgers to go.
the scene, the way it's edited, not the way it's edited. No, I shouldn't say that. The way it's directed, you almost wonder if something more is going on there because Rick is so quick to go, we'll take those burgers to go. I mean, was this all like, like, was there something sexual going on between them there? If that was
God, I never would have thought of that in a million years. Honest to God, I never would have thought of that.
Rick was too eager to leave.
Oh.
He's enjoying a barbecue, an outdoor barbecue. Andrea goes, I want to finish painting the apartment. We'll take those to go. Boom. Boom. If you had shown me this episode first, as the very first episode of Isis I'd ever seen, I would have asked you right there and then, so when do they get it on? Because there was a little bit of a flirty nature between the two of them. Usually Andrea could be it was almost like teasingly flirty with Rick sometimes, either as Isis or as Andrea. But here, Rick was, kind of giving as good as he got.
Oh, my poor sanitized eyes.
I've ruined the show.
But, one of the themes of this episode, Spots the Leopard, is things are not as they appear. There's active deception and passive deception.
Or as that old meme says, where it says the walls represent his loneliness and he's trapped in the room, and what the author really means is that the walls are just effing blue.
Oh, okay.
When you read too much into something.
I actually thought, in my dirty 8-year-old mind, that Captain Marvel and Isis had something going on, okay?
You wanted something? I did too. Yeah.
Hey, when you're wearing a tight miniskirt and when you're wearing tights, something has to be going on.
I actually, you're right though. I did think that, and then I actually used to think, poor Rick Mason, you'll never get Isis. Not with Captain Marvel around.
There is a throwaway line to that effect in a future episode, John.
No, really?
Really? It's when there are 3 crossovers of Captain Marvel on Isis. And there's a scene that I hope we'll get to where Captain Marvel is with Rick Mason in one scene, and Isis is standing there, and words to the effect are exchanged about what kind of a man Captain Marvel is. Oh, boy.
Wow.
We're 8-year-old kids, you writers. Don't be writing this porno for us. Jeez.
Oh. All right. So look, stunts.
There are no stunts here.
There's no stunts.
There are no stunts.
No.
You don't have Isis running around the tops of cars.
No.
She's not doing any great leaping or anything like that. She's not doing any special things involving nothing out of the ordinary. Like when she flies, that's stock footage when they filmed her earlier.
Right.
It's not doing any leaps from a tall ladder, or certainly not hanging off of helicopter rails.
Exactly. And in terms of the fashion, it's the usuals are wearing what they usually wear. The only thing that stood out to me a little was Chuck and Jeff. They look like basically typical 70s guys with their plaid coats and their wide lapel shirts.
Yeah, the shirts didn't seem to be too bad.
Not too bad, but I wouldn't wear those today, those shirts.
No, the plaid coats. Oh, the 70s. What were people thinking? Oh, gosh.
We will return to Isis after these messages.
Flying Aces, U.S., Russian, Canadian, Chinese. You put them on the Flying Aces flight deck to launch them into action. You can fly a jet solo, or launch a squadron together, and chase them into the sky. The Flying Aces flight deck, with the planes that fly as good as they look. Flying Aces flight deck comes with 2 Flying Aces jets and flight deck from Mattel.
Colonel Steve Austin, the $6 Million Man, and the new Bionic Transport and Repair Station.
The rocket's crashing! We'll put him in the Bionic Repair Station. We can rebuild him. We'll replace the modules in the bionic arm. No injury here. We'll have to check his eye. Bionic Eye, A-OK. $6 million man, ready for action.
New bionic transport and repair station sold separately. The $6 million man, new from Kenner.
And now, back to Isis.
Today we learned the importance of keeping faith with a friend or someone you love, even if it seems they've done something wrong. If they have, it'll come out soon enough. But if they haven't, they need someone who will believe in them when others won't. That's what being a true friend really means. See you next week.
So, what is the true moral of this episode, John?
All right. So, it's interesting. When we look at the morals here, Andrea, Isis, because she comes and she delivers the morals, which is also another interesting thing, that it's like you got Isis doing the morals on her show, but on Shazam, it's Billy that's doing them right now, obviously because of the whole thing that was going on with Jackson. But it is a little bit of an interesting difference there between the two. But also I noticed with Andrea's episodes, she gets a little more personal with her, because she's like, today we learned the importance of keeping faith in a friend. Captain Marvel would just come right out and say, you should always have faith in your parents, kids. See you next week. It's not like he would get right to the point. She talks to you. Like the whole thing the week before because she's talking directly to you when she speaks, Isis, which I always thought was interesting.
Yeah, and Joanna Cameron had a great way of being able to deliver those lines. She probably did not have to commit them to memory. She might have been reading a teleprompter. Maybe she was reading a script that was written out underneath the camera. We don't know. But I thought she did a very good job of delivering the morals for each week's episode. She did it really well. She acted it as though she's having a conversation with the kids, and she did a very good job.
And it's a good moral. I mean, just about having faith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is true. You have to have that kind of faith. So what do you think, John? Does this hold up for today?
In my opinion, it does. And as I mentioned earlier on, I think today the whole idea of faith in family, faith in parents and such, and even like we talked about in the previous episode, you've got dysfunctional. What were we talking about? It was with Michael Gray, where we were joking about how there's more like dysfunctional parents these days, and you can't always trust everything they say because they might put you off or something like that. We live in that kind of a world, but at the same time, we do need to have that faith. I think it does hold up. I think it's an important message. It's just that we live in a world these days where we're willing to always believe the worst first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that's true. Yeah. And so, what would you rate this? How many tuts would you rate this episode, Spots of the Leopard?
Well, like I said, I would have gone a little lower. My initial thoughts were 4 out of 5 tuts, only because of the odd editing choices at certain points. But you know what? I really like this episode, and I do like the car lifting at the very end and depositing it in front of the police and such. I think this episode has a lot more layers to it than a typical episode, certainly more than the first 2 episodes did. And the performances are really strong. So in the end, I'm going to say 5 out of 5 tuts.
And I have to agree. I think it's 5 out of 5 tuts. And I think that we've mentioned it before, the economy of writing. They did an outstanding job here because you have multiple characters you have to give screen time to. They made Isis appear twice, not just once, but twice. They made good use of her. And the interaction and chemistry between Rick Mason and Andrea and Cindy Lee is evident for all to see. I thought the father-daughter dynamic was very strong. I thought that the twist at the end with the insurance investigator was a very good twist. As a little kid, maybe as an adult you can see that's predictable. As a kid, I didn't predict it. And in a short story like this, which is about approximately 24 minutes or so, not counting the commercials, I think that we would not have caught on necessarily right away that it was the insurance investigator all along who was the real villain behind the diamond heist. So I thought that the twist was really well done. Now, this particular episode, John, I believe this is the kind of episode that the second season of Shazam should have had more of. I thought that Isis was able to learn from what they were doing with Shazam the year before to craft a new show that could take children's storytelling with a cast of characters like this to a whole new level that they didn't do the first time. Because Shazam, you were wandering around all over the place in the RV. You're wandering on the countryside, bumping into kids in distress. Here you have your cast of characters, your core group of characters, in a school where you're going to have an intersection of young adults who have problems that Isis and the others in the cast could come along and help. And there were some substantive plots here. Here you had a father who's an ex-con. Here you had an insurance investigator who put him behind bars, who now is the villain of the story. And I thought it was really a well-crafted script for a children's television show. Very well done.
Okay, now let me ask you this then. Did you like Next Generation?
I liked it. I did watch all of them. I didn't think it was better than the original.
Okay. Did you like Deep Space Nine?
Yes, very much. I liked it better than Next Gen.
Okay, so there you go. You actually then, because I was going to see if you trip up there, because you were saying how Isis did better in certain ways, stepping up from what Shazam did. Deep Space Nine did the same thing than with Next Gen. Think about it. Shazam and Next Generation are the same thing. It's a vehicle going out and finding adventure, whereas Isis is we're in the school. And Deep Space Nine is we're on a space station, and the adventure comes to us.
Yes, that's right. The adventure comes to us. That's right. That's exactly right. And that was the strange, decision on the part of the creators of Deep Space Nine, where it wasn't really Star Trek. They weren't going out among the stars and trekking. They were at a station, and the adventure would come to them. Here in Shazam Isis Hour, The Secrets of Isis, the problems, the dilemmas, the adventure would come to the cast of characters. Billy and Mentor would travel the highways and byways of the land. And so there's a difference in how the story is positioned. But I don't know. I would think that even with the format of Shazam, where the Billy and Mentor are traveling in the RV, encountering situations, that the scripts could have had a little bit more punch to them that we see here in this particular episode of Isis, that I think is a very strong script. You've got a villain who sets up an ex-con, and you don't quite see that type of storytelling in the episodes of Shazam that we've seen so far. And here, it wasn't just an adolescent or teenager's dilemma. It was the father's dilemma, trying to reconcile how is he going to live now as an ex-con, waiting for a job, being under suspicion of any job that gets pulled off. Now, I think Shazam came awful close with that with the two-part episodes that we saw, The Gang's All Here and The Past Is Not Forever, as you recall.
Right.
Very similar to that, where you had an adolescent who had to look over his shoulder and had to live down his past.
Yeah, I would agree. So, all right, that brings us in with another 5 out of 5 tuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So here is the third episode that we've reviewed so far. Isis is going off to a strong start.
Yes. I think a stronger start than first season Shazam got.
Yeah, probably a little stronger, because here in Isis, they had a few more characters to throw at us.
Well, there's that too, yeah. All right, so next time, though, we're going to be switching back to Captain Marvel. And let's see if this new episode with the return of John Davey as Captain Marvel from this point on, too, with John Davey as Captain Marvel. Let's see if this new episode holds up and if it actually offers the promise of something more the way Isis is offering something more. Captain Marvel is robbing gas stations. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Captain Marvel is robbing gas stations, and he doesn't even bother to even attempt to shoplift the hostess snack pies.
Oh, it looks like double trouble for Billy and Mentor in our next review. So until next time, folks, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Richard, take care.
Take care, John, and I hope our listening audience is liking us on Facebook. We want a lot of feedback from all of you. Please go and visit us there.